Hey guys, today is April 8th, Wednesday. Welcome back. We are going to be in topic 2 of the review book today. So here is what we are up to. If you could please find your review book. A couple things that should be done for today. You should be done with topic 1. So I reached out to you if you still had not completed the topic 1 quiz. It is still open. The quizzes are how I am logging your attendance and participation. So it's important that you're completing those quizzes. Nothing was due this past Sunday. And so we're just going to continue in topic 2. So what you're going to need out today is the last little section of topic 2, which starts on page 33 in your review book. We are going to go through some of this new information and try some independent practice. This section on page 33 is called Disease as a Failure of Homeostasis. So if homeostasis is a balance, we're going to see what happens when there is not a balance. And at the end of this video, I am going to clarify any due dates, any of the choice activities, and what quiz grades actually mean. So I found this article a little while ago, and I want to preface this by saying that this was pretty early on in the coronavirus epidemic, and the study has not yet been peer-reviewed. But as we go through this section of topic 2, I found this interesting because this article basically said that your blood type could determine how likely you are to get coronavirus. And it showed that people with type A blood were more likely to not only catch the virus, but die from it. And people with type O blood were less likely to get COVID-19. So I want to come back to this when we talk about blood types later in this topic. All right, so starting off on page 33, this part of the topic talked about what are some agents that can cause disease. So this term pathogen is a really important term in Regents biology, and a pathogen is just a general term for any foreign invader organism. So these are living things that can cause disease. Viruses are pathogens that can cause disease, influenza, COVID-19, HIV. Bacteria, fungi, and parasites are all agents that can cause disease in the human body. All of those are considered living things, although viruses have some controversy. We also talked back when we talked about mitosis about cancer also being a failure of homeostasis because it's just uncontrolled cellular division or uncontrolled mitosis. That is usually caused by mutations that can be random or caused by things like ultraviolet radiation or certain chemicals. So very fitting for the whole reason that we're not in school is to discuss the immune system. The body has its own defenses against pathogens. We consider the skin the first line of defense. If anything is capable of penetrating the skin, your ultimate barrier against pathogens, then you have other backup kind of defenses. So the skin is the ultimate defender against pathogens, and then your body also produces secretions like tears, saliva, and mucus to try to trap foreign pathogens before they enter the rest of the circulatory system. Your senses, sight, smell, taste, those are also defense mechanisms against harmful pathogens. Your muscle and nervous systems also work together to kind of complete what's called your fight or flight response to danger. And we'll kind of get into that more when we talk about the human body. Where I want to go today is very microscopic. So this term antigen is a very general term. We've talked a lot about how structure dictates function in the human body, and antigens are really no different than the concept of how an enzyme breaks down a very specific molecule. So if you think of a pathogen as being a cell, most of them are single-celled that can enter the body, all of these pathogens have what are called antigens on the surface. So these antigens have a very specific shape. They are a certain type of receptor protein found in the cell membrane of, let's say that this is the COVID-19 virus. That antigen does not belong in the body, so it is considered non-self. So what that's going to do is that little antigen on the surface is going to stimulate an immune response. So how does your body recognize these? There are many, many, many types of white blood cells in your body, and each different type performs a specific task. So you have some white blood cells called macrophages, and their job is to just kind of float around like blobs in the blood. And they find a pathogen, they surround it, they engulf it, they digest it, and they attack it. You also have white blood cells in the body that make what are called antibodies. And this is a really common term that I'm sure you've heard before. Proteins that attack specifically shaped antigens are called antibodies. So this can get confusing. Antigens are the things that are on the actual pathogen, whereas antibodies are what are made by your immune system. So if I were to draw what an antibody might look like that would attack this antigen, that might be what this antibody that my body would make might look like. And they're doing some really cool research right now. They're taking the plasma, the fluid portion of blood from people who have recovered from COVID-19. And what they're doing is they are taking antibodies out of the blood and seeing if they can inject those antibodies into patients to see if they can stimulate a faster immune response to COVID-19. So the main thing here is that antigens, you want to make sure that you know that antigens are what are present on the cell, and antibodies are what are made by your white blood cell to fight it. Now, what gets a little confusing is all the cells in your body have their own antigens on it, but your body knows not to attack them. So they're really just looking for antigens on pathogens that don't belong in your body. So then what are vaccines? People are also kind of feverishly working to figure out a vaccine for COVID-19. Vaccines are weakened or dead versions of pathogens that are prepared and injected into an individual to stimulate an immune response. So since these are weakened or dead microbes, they're not going to be strong enough or live enough to stimulate a full immune response. So if you get a flu shot, you're not going to get the flu. You're going to maybe get some antigens or just a dead or weakened version of the flu virus. Now, how this works is you have just a tiny bit, a little exposure to this microbe, and the immune system produces antibodies that are specific to the antigens on that pathogen. So the flu vaccine would only work against one certain type of flu with one certain particular antigen on its surface. So for example, flu B versus flu A, if you have a vaccine for flu B, it's not going to protect against the antigens on flu A. It allows your immune system to respond quicker and more efficiently than if your body came into contact with it without antibodies already present in your bloodstream. The last section of topic 2 talks about some common problems with the immune system. So we already talked in the last section about HIV. HIV is a virus that attacks the actual immune system in the human body. So it attacks the white blood cells that are responsible for your immune response. So certain cells called T cells are a type of white blood cell. And once the virus, the HIV virus, attacks enough T cells so that your body can't fight off other diseases, it is then classified as AIDS. Now, people don't typically die of AIDS. They typically die of some usually harmless immune response to like a common cold or pneumonia that you could normally fight off, but you have so few white blood cells that you're not able to. An allergy is also a problem with the immune system, and that's kind of common right now. I just got a notification on my phone of high pollen in the air today. So an allergy is when the body responds to a harmless antigen. So things like pollen, dust, certain foods like peanuts, etc., they all have their own antigens on them. And typically they are not harmful to the body. But an allergy is when your body produces a full immune response to an antigen on something that's not harmful. You produce a chemical called histamine. Therefore, things like antihistamines are used to combat allergy symptoms. Stops you from releasing that chemical histamine, which causes itchy eyes, watery eyes, swelling, things like that. An autoimmune disease is when the body does not recognize its own antigens on its own cells, and it attacks cells of the human body. Type 1 diabetes is an example of an autoimmune disease that also affects the rest of the body systems. The cells of the pancreas that produce insulin get attacked because the body thinks that they're foreign cells. So the problem with an autoimmune, which means self-immune, the body can't distinguish from self and non-self, so it attacks its own cells. This is also seen with organ rejection during transplants, and it can also be a problem during blood transfusions if you don't match blood types. So going back to the Daily Discovery, which was the article about does your blood type matter with your susceptibility to getting COVID-19. So the article said that there is some research to support that people with type A blood are more susceptible than people with type O blood to getting COVID-19 and how they respond to it. So we know that this is a genetic thing. You inherit blood type from mom and dad, and you get two alleles for type A, B, AB, or O blood. Now, O is the recessive, and there's a lot of genetics involved in how you get your certain blood type. But what I want to focus on in this topic is the antigen-antibody response. So if you look at an individual's red blood cells with type A blood, you will see that they have these pink circular antigens on the surface, and they have a drawing of that down here. And someone with type A blood, what they do is they make antibodies that attack type B blood. So you could never give type A blood to someone with type B. The same problem with if you have type B blood, you have these kind of green diamond-shaped antigens, and you make antibodies against type A blood. So if you see these anti-B antibodies would fit these antigens, and these anti-A antibodies would attack these A antigens. Now, AB blood is interesting because they have both types of antigens in their cell membranes on your red blood cells. So if you have type AB blood, you have both of these receptors, these antigens, but you don't make any antibodies. So I want you to think about what that might mean for you if you have type AB blood. If you don't make any antibodies, what does that mean for you? Lastly, type O blood is interesting because there are absolutely no antigens on the surface. However, they produce antibodies that would attack both type B and type A blood. So blood typing is a really, really good example of the antigen-antibody response. So you probably have heard that some people are universal donors of blood and universal recipients of blood. I'm going to eliminate type A and type B blood from the running here because you can't start mixing A and B blood because you know that one will attack the other. So between AB and O blood, I want you to think about which type could donate or give their blood to anybody and which type could receive blood from anybody. So when it comes to donating, you want to pick the type of blood that would have no antigens that were able to be to stimulate an immune response in the body. Even though you make antibodies against both types of blood, you don't have any antigens on the surface that are going to stimulate an immune response. Whereas someone with type AB blood can receive from anybody because they do not make any antibodies. So they're not going to attack any type of blood. I want you to think about this because I am going to ask you a quiz question about why this phenomenon happens in terms of both antibodies and antigens. So feel free to pause, rewind, and kind of go back through this blood typing again. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the last section of topic 2. I want to try number 58 together. And this is number 58 on page 37. So number 58 says that the body makes chemicals that can help to destroy viruses and bacteria. These chemicals are called 1, antibodies, 2, vaccines, 3, hormones, 4, antibiotics. The key here is that it's a chemical made by the body. So one that I can get rid of right away is antibiotics. Those are not made by the body. Vaccines are also not made by the body, although they both have their role in immune system defenses. So if I look at the 2 chemicals that are made by the body, antibodies and hormones, one that would help destroy pathogens would be 1, antibodies. You want to be careful because sometimes they might throw the term antigens in here as a choice. The body doesn't make antigens. Antigens are the pieces that are sticking out of the cells that match up with the antibodies your body makes. So anytime you're looking for a chemical made by the body in immune system questions, you're looking for antibodies. If it's something that stimulates the immune response, that would be the term antigen. All right, so I want you to pause the video. I want you to try numbers 54 to 64 and number 67 on pages 36 and 37 on your own, and then check back. Now I want you to pause the video and I want you to check your answers. What to do now? So hopefully the independent practice, just those last 2 pages, 36 and 37, are done. Make sure you complete any that we didn't just do together. As far as the choice activity, you have the same options as you had last week. So if you completed a choice activity last week, you're done. You don't have to do another one. If you have not completed one of the choice activities yet, the options are completing some of the Regents questions starting on page 38 in your review book. I just want you to do numbers 1 through 15, 18 and 19, and 35 through 37. There is an answer key on Schoology. That is one option. You don't have to do that and an activity from the folder. If you choose an activity from the folder, you don't have to send me anything. Lastly, I want you to try the topic 2 quiz, which is up now, by Sunday at midnight. You want to make sure that you have done one choice activity before you take the quiz because I'm going to ask you to describe it for me. Lastly, some clarification and feedback on your quiz grades. So although these quiz grades are not going in the grade book, they do provide you with some feedback. So since I give you 2 attempts at the quiz, if you're getting an 85 to 100% correct, I would say that you're doing excellent work. 75 to 84, you're doing good work. 65 to 74, you've passed the quiz and that's satisfactory work. But if you find that you take the quiz and you're getting below a 65, I think that you need to definitely use your second attempt to make sure that you understand the material. All right, the last thing that I want to do, since it wasn't working last time, is I would like to show you where those choice activities are in the topic 2 folder. Some of you were having trouble with the links and some of you figured it out, but let's say I wanted to do the cells of the immune system interactive activity. When I click this link, it might not take me directly to that activity, and you might have seen this little sad face. But if you click in the upper right-hand corner, the square with the arrow, it's going to open a new screen for you, and it's going to take you directly to the activity. So if you chose this, that is how you would get to that. Again, you do not have to do something in this folder and the Regents questions. You just have to do one choice. All right, reach out if you have any questions. Enjoy the rest of your day, and the Topic 2 quiz is due by Sunday at midnight.